A monster, a cold-blooded killer.
Why individual will hurt human life and have no remorse?
I'm sure you didn't have with these women and maybe something went awry.
And that her had been thrown and was resting up against the fence.
It's the conclusion of a murder case that has stretched on for years. Cabria Arnold, a 20-year-old college softball player, was killed in November 2019 while she was pregnant. The woman who pulled the trigger stood before Arnold's family and the judge for sentencing. Emotions have been high ever since the tragic incident 4 years ago, when a friend shot her friend, leading to this conviction.
No punishment that you receive will ever compare to the pain and torture that you have inflicted upon us. There is no real justice, only incarceration for a sick individual monster who needs to be isolated in a cell, not able to see or hear or touch or come in contact with anyone.
Cabria Arnold's father and sister finally had the opportunity to speak directly to Gabrielle Brantley, the woman convicted of Cabria's tragic death in November 2019. Brantley, who was a friend of Cabria's, was found guilty of shooting the 20-year-old multiple times. The gunfire also claimed the life of Cabria's unborn child. Police, prosecutors, and the jury concluded that Brantley was responsible for killing the aspiring nurse and softball player. The motive behind the shooting appeared to be related to a dispute over a man. During the sentencing, Brantley remained defiant, maintaining her innocence until the end.
Here I stand, labeled the bad guy, a monster, a cold-blooded killer. When the truth is, that's not who I am at all. The person who actually plotted, planned, and executed Cabria's murder is still out there.
Judge Sharon Walker had the final word in the case, sentencing Brantley to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
All over a man who didn't love you. Darnell didn't love you or Cabria. As far as the court is concerned, the jury got it right, and you're going to get every day that you deserve.
The judge's strong words added to the emotional atmosphere for the family. Even the prosecutor seemed surprised, as a new misdemeanor assault charge against Brantley, stemming from an incident at the Wayne County Jail, was included in the sentencing report. Despite this, Brantley's sentence remains life without parole. A woman has died after being struck by a car in Springfield. The suspect appeared before a judge, with the courtroom camera capturing the arraignment. The victim's daughter spoke during the hearing, sharing that this tragedy happened near a brutal reminder in her life. It was just 5 days before the second anniversary of her father's death.
Nathan Colon?
18-year-old Nathan Colon could be facing decades in prison. The teenager, who celebrated his birthday just 8 days ago, is now the main suspect in a fatal hit-and-run that occurred in Springfield.
A female pedestrian had been struck by a car while crossing the street, and that her had been thrown and was resting up against the fence.
The police report described a tragic scene after a woman was found with severe injuries. Witnesses told police they saw two vehicles racing at what appeared to be at least 60 miles per hour going east on Boston Road. The victim was identified as Christine Andrews, Kaylee Voisin's mother.
My mom, she had a really big heart, and she always wanted to help everybody.
Funds have been raised to support Christine Andrews' unexpected funeral expenses in her honor.
I could never thank her enough for all that she's done for me my whole 16 years of living.
Kaylee's mother's death is especially heartbreaking because it falls just 5 days before the 2-year anniversary of her father's passing, marking yet another tragic milestone for the family as they continue to grieve.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Colon, just 2 years older than Kaylee, faced a judge for what investigators say he did to her mother and the false statements he made afterward. Initially, he claimed his car had been stolen, but officers soon discovered that wasn't true. Colon told police his car was taken from a nearby McDonald's, but it was later found on Coleman Street, while Colon himself was located at his family home.
He had showered and had changed his clothing. Officers were able to recover the clothing he previously had. And when officers were interacting with him, they noted that his forearm exhibited the signs of a airbag burn. In addition to all that, when the defendant was taken into, or was being held, the key fob belonging to the car that was involved in the crash was found in his pocket.
Prosecutors raised several concerns about the suspect, a senior at Ludlow High School, who has had a troubling history with his car. They highlighted his past behavior and incidents involving the vehicle, adding to the seriousness of the case.
The clerk and to defense a copy of his driving record. The defendant's license was scheduled to be suspended for points and surchargeable events this Friday.
Now, as the suspect, held on a $10,000 bail, prepares for his next court date in October, Kaylee hopes he understands the consequences of his actions.
He took not only just a woman's life, he took somebody's mother.
Kaylee shared more about her mother, highlighting the loving and caring person she was and how deeply she impacted those around her. In Nassau County, a man convicted of driving drunk and going the wrong way, causing a crash that killed 21-year-old Ryan Kennedy, 22-year-old Bailey McKnight, and their unborn 3 years ago, was sentenced to 60 years in prison. Ryan Kennedy's mother expressed that she feels as if she died that night too, but they forgot to bury her. Bailey McKnight's mother shared that all future cherished moments were stolen, including planning a wedding or meeting and holding their future grandson.
I've gotten rid of all of my necklaces because this is the only thing that I can wear, because it is his thumbprint, and it makes me feel safe, and it makes me feel close to him. It makes me think about him every day.
But he needed to hear it. He needed to hear what he's taken away.
McKnight's child, Hagen, is now growing up without his mother. His grandmother, Misty, who is raising him, shared that he has struggled with eating at school since his mother's passing. The family expressed their overwhelming grief, mentally, spiritually, and financially, and the future that was stolen from them on July 21st, 2018. In court, Blitchington read an apology letter to the victims' families, stating that he is physically sick with guilt over the pain he's caused through his actions and poor decisions. He also admitted to struggling with alcohol addiction. It wasn't until 3 weeks after the crash that he learned Bailey McKnight was 8 months pregnant with baby Lawson.
I'm very sorry for the deaths and all the pain, suffering, and burden caused by this accident. It has caused great pain and suffering in the lives of family, friends, and many loved ones, including everyone here today.
Bailey McKnight's family expressed doubts about Blitchington's remorse, with Bailey stating she doesn't believe he is genuinely sorry. Blitchington's older brother, along with other family members, took the stand and wrote letters of apology, mentioning how alcoholism runs in their family. Blitchington's attorney requested the judge show leniency by considering a 32.5-year sentence followed by treatment. State prosecutors pushed for life in prison, arguing that Blitchington is a danger to the community, especially since he continued driving despite 5 prior DUI arrests and having his license revoked. Judge Daniel noted that Blitchington's first DUI arrest was in 2002 and that he had been given multiple opportunities for rehab, but chose to continue down the same destructive path, accumulating 5 convictions. Now, Blitchington will spend the next 60 years in prison. A 20-year-old Albuquerque man was hoping the judge would consider his age and show leniency, but that didn't happen. As Candace Hopkin reports, Alex Rios was given the maximum sentence, 67.5 years in prison, for his horrific crime against 2 homeless individuals. The families of Key Thompson and Allison Gorman say their lives have been forever changed since that tragic day in 2014, when their loved ones were brutally killed, seemingly for no reason other than amusement.
So inhumane and so savagely done that our beloved brother was unrecognizable. It took several days to identify him.
It's hard to understand why individual will hurt human life and have no remorse.
Gorman and Thompson were attacked while sleeping in an empty lot near Central and Coors. The judge remarked that their deaths were so brutal that it was more than just murder.
I can't even call this a killing. Quite simply, it was torture. That's what happened to Allison Gorman and Key Thompson.
Police arrested Alex Rios, who was 18 at the time, along with Nathaniel Carrillo and Gilbert Tafoya. Now 20, Rios was convicted in December of second-degree murder and several other felonies. Even in court, Rios insisted he was innocent and claimed he did not participate in the beatings.
I would just like to apologize to the Allison Gorman and Key Thompson family I know the pain that they're going through. I lost my mother when I was 16 years old.
He pleaded with the judge for mercy, but she quickly denied his request and handed down the maximum sentence of 67.5 years, much to the relief of the prosecutors.
The judge gave him every minute she could.
However, Rios' defense attorney argued that the punishment was too severe for someone they claimed was merely a bystander.
He should have called 911. He should have done any number of things, but he didn't intervene.
The judge told Rios that he was minimizing his involvement in the murders. Tafoya accepted a plea deal and will serve 20 years in prison, while Carrillo is scheduled to stand trial in September. The man accused in the fatal shooting of a 21-year-old student from Nepal appeared in court again. Bobby Shah, 51, faced the judge in a brief 10-minute hearing. The judge reviewed the evidence and denied his request for bail. Shah is facing a capital murder charge for the death of 21-year-old Muna Pandey, a nursing student from Nepal who was studying in Houston. Pandey was found in her bed with multiple gunshot wounds. According to court records, surveillance footage from Saturday at 9:48 p.m. showed someone believed to be Shah leaving her apartment. Police are still investigating the motive of the crime, and the relationship between Shah and Pandey remains unclear. Several members of the Houston Police Association and people who knew Muna attended the court hearing to show their support.
We are happy that he got denied in the bond, and I appreciate whoever working towards it, and I really appreciate everyone who is helping towards this case and supporting us and Muna's mom.
The prosecutor and defense attorneys also discussed the case during the hearing.
I felt it was incumbent upon us to definitely ask for no bail in this case. I believe he poses a grave risk of danger to our community.
The evidence that he's provided us, the conversations that he's had with us, there's no reason for us to believe that he is not guilty of the case that he's been charged with, which is capital. And we're looking forward to proving his innocence in the court of law.
Muna's mother is traveling from Nepal and is expected to arrive in Houston in the next few days to attend her daughter's funeral. Shah's next court appearance is scheduled for within the next 90 days. Police say the streets are safer now after arresting 3 teens linked to a series of robberies and a murder that occurred within just a day and a half. One of the teens appeared shocked when she heard the charges against her. The suspects were brought into court. A man shared his experience of being approached by a teenage girl on Celebration Drive who asked if he had a phone charger. When he said no, another teen came up, pointed a gun at him, and robbed him of everything he had. Police believe these 2 teens, along with a third accomplice, were involved in a robbery just 5 hours earlier that resulted in a man's death. The girl appeared stunned when the charges were read out in court.
You have 3 warrants for armed robbery and 1 warrant for felony murder.
Fernecha Torres appeared visibly shocked, throwing angry glares at her 2 co-defendants, Nicholas Evans and Khalil Miller, before the gravity of her situation seemed to finally sink in.
Those are the charges that are pending right now.
Miller also appeared surprised when he learned of a second armed robbery charge against him. By the time his charges were read, Evans seemed to have already come to terms with the situation. All 3 are accused of murdering William Tunchez near a trail off North Cliff Drive during what police describe as a 30-hour crime spree.
We do believe it was a set-up robbery.
The arrests bring some relief to Tunchez's parents and his church community. They recently gathered to honor his life on the same stage where he played piano for his Gwinnett County congregation. Sometimes young people end up with the wrong people in the wrong place at the wrong time. Investigators are still uncertain how Tunchez crossed paths with the 3 teens, as he had no ties to the neighborhood where he was shot and killed. Jail records reveal that suspect Nicholas Evans lived just down the street from where the incident occurred.
And all 3 were identified as being at the scene.
Police believe that Evans was the one who actually pulled the trigger in the murder, while they say Torres, the female suspect, was used to lure the victims in. A A San Antonio couple charged in a fatal dog attack appeared in court to enter their pleas just 2 weeks before their trial was set to begin. Christian Moreno and Abilene Schneider's dogs attacked an elderly couple on the west side, resulting in the death of an 81-year-old man. Now, the focus is on how Moreno and Schneider will be punished.
What is your plea to the charge of dog attack causing death? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Guilty, Your Honor.
Guilty, Your Honor.
By entering guilty pleas, Abilene Schneider and Christian Moreno have now been convicted of a dangerous dog attack causing death. This decision came just days before jury selection was set to begin. The incident occurred in February of last year when Ramon Najera and his wife visited a friend on DePlace Street on the west side. As they exited their vehicle, Moreno and Schneider's dogs attacked them and others who tried to intervene. Najera tragically died from his injuries that day, and the couple was later charged with a dangerous dog attack resulting in death and injury to the elderly. The dogs had a history of complaints from neighbors and had previously attacked someone else. Schneider and Moreno attempted to have the charges dropped, but Judge William Mesa denied their request.
So you understand that you're leaving the decision up to me. If this is a prison case, it could be 2 to 20, and this is a probation case, it could be up to 10 years probation.
The sentencing phase will begin in September, where the judge will hear testimony similar to a trial, but without a jury present. Judge Mesa is expected to announce the sentences for Schneider and Moreno. The state is opposed to probation and plans to pursue the maximum punishment.
They will be asking for the maximum 20 years confinement. That's not agreed to. That's just simply, they're saying that's what they're asking for.
The injury to the elderly charge will depend on the outcome of the sentencing for the second-degree felony dangerous dog attack charge. Based on what happens during sentencing, the state will decide whether to pursue the injury charge further or dismiss it entirely. The second suspect charged with the capital murder of Jocelyn Nungaray, 22-year-old Johan Jose Martinez Rangel, made his first court appearance, where the judge set his bail at $10 million. During the hearing, prosecutors presented new and unsettling details about Jocelyn's death, which were difficult for her family to hear. They revealed that Martinez Rangel's cell phone records showed he had been searching for ways to leave the country. He also allegedly confessed to a witness, stating that he had done something bad and harmed someone, now dead. During his arrest, investigators noticed that Martinez Rangel had visible bites and scratches on his arms. While Martinez Rangel is facing a capital murder charge, he is not currently eligible for the death penalty unless a proof-evident hearing is held. Prosecutors explained that they must first show the court that a jury would likely impose the death penalty, as the current charge alone does not meet the legal criteria for such a sentence.
And one of the things I would have to prove at that hearing is that a jury would likely give death. Because this is not death penalty eligible, I can't have that hearing by law. Now, what the judge was explaining is if we change this case to a capital murder with an underlying of sexual assault or kidnapping, those cases are death penalty eligible, and then at that time we can have a proof evident hearing to hold them at no bond.
Investigators reported that Jocelyn was found tied up and her body was discovered in a creek in North Houston just over a week ago. Prosecutors added that they are working to rush testing results, and both suspects remain in custody. Khalil Arceneaux, already charged with the murder of a 90-year-old veteran, is now accused of robbing a University of Houston student at point inside his dorm. Prosecutors say both incidents occurred in the same week and were committed by the same person. The district attorney's office stated that video surveillance and a tip connected him to the armed robbery at the dorm. The 21-year-old appeared in court, facing capital murder charges for the shooting of Navy veteran Nelson Beckett, and now he's dealing with this additional robbery charge.
We filed charges on him for aggravated robbery.
Prosecutor Dana Nazarova reported that Arceneaux robbed a University of Houston student at point inside his dorm at Moody Tower.
We did find that there were ties to this defendant and that he was one of the people who held him at point during that robbery.
The incident happened around 4 a.m. when the student returned from the restroom and found two men searching through his room. The suspects held him at gunpoint, taking advantage of what should have been a secure space. Authorities stated that surveillance footage played a crucial role in identifying Arceneaux.
This defendant has their unique, let's say, bald spot on his head. We were able to identify that. In addition to that, there was a tip provided that he might be one of the robbers. And then when we compared the images and that specific feature on his head, we were able to connect the ties.
Authorities are still investigating how Arceneaux gained access to the dorm. A later court appearance has been scheduled. A woman has been charged with murder after allegedly strangling her son and then driving around for hours with his body in the car in Miami-Dade. Shaneka Ann McKenzie, 36, is accused of killing her son, Jason Burgos. According to the police report, McKenzie brought Jason to Hialeah Hospital. He was unresponsive and, sadly, was declared dead at the hospital. The medical examiner confirmed that the child died from strangulation. Police said McKenzie later admitted that she had been planning to harm her son for 2 days.
Good afternoon, Miss McKenzie. You were arrested for 1 count of first-degree murder. I will appoint the public defender's office for you. Ms. Corey.
We invoke Ms. McKenzie's right to counsel and her right to remain silent.
All right, so I've reviewed the arrest affidavit. There is probable cause for the charge of first-degree murder. She killed her child. So I'm holding you with no bond. Good day, ma'am.
McKenzie was taken into custody and booked into jail. At her court appearance on Thursday, the judge denied her bail and assigned her a public defender. A former co-defendant of Atlanta rapper Young Thug, who previously accepted a plea deal, spent several hours on the witness stand. This marked the first time a significant witness connected to the rapper testified in the trial. Trontavia Stevens, also known as Tick and Slug, identified Young Thug as one of the founding members of Young Slime Life. However, Stevens complicated matters for the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, as they tried to portray Young Slime Life as a criminal organization. During his testimony, he struggled to recall certain conversations and had tense exchanges with prosecutors.
Are you aware of any of the hand signs used to proclaim sex money murder?
Yes.
Are you able to perform or to demonstrate any of these hand signs without the use of somebody else's hand?
Yes.
Would you please show the jury one hand sign signifying sex money murder? What does that mean?
Blood.
Okay. And what are you describing? For the court reporter's sake, describe how you just hurled your fingers.
Dang. I made a circle out my pointing finger and my thumb, and I made another circle about my middle finger.
And are you familiar with any other signs that signify sex money murder?
Yes.
Would you describe it before you show it? What other signs are you familiar with?
What I described before I show it. A smaller circle.
What else?
And not curling my index finger this time.
Are those the only ones that you're familiar with?
Yes.
Would you show the jury the things that you just described? What is that?
A small, a lowercase b.
And what does that stand for?
Blood.
Okay. And what was the other one that you described, or was that the only one?
I described a capitalized B.
Okay. Are those the only two hand signs you're familiar with that are related to sex money murder?
Yeah, that I can call them.
Opening statements were delivered in November, and the trial is anticipated to last anywhere from several months to a year. On December 2nd, 2016, Sarah Stern disappeared from Belmar. Now, her friend Liam McAtasney is accused of robbing and murdering her. In the interrogation room, he hides behind a mask of elusive reactions, making it difficult to uncover the truth.
Do you remember talking to her? Or do you remember her talking on the phone while you were at the house?
Not that I know.
At any point while you were there, do you remember calling her on her phone?
No. I never called her phone. But She had been just taking calls from multiple family members over the past few weeks. Everyone saying how worried they were about her. So
Friday was the second.
Somebody easily could have called her and had a conversation. I could have just thought it was a different day.
So you called her at 3:20. I'm sorry.
3:20.
No. I apologize.
Yeah,
the first. A little late. It was the first.
Mm-hmm.
You called her at 12:58 on the second.
Yep. That was the call to ask. Taco Bell, I guess.
Do you remember her getting a call a little before 2 o'clock? Her phone rang. She answered the phone.
No idea. Could it have been Robin? Because I know the Draper, the person that lives across the street. Because I know that she had been contacting her that day to ask whether or not it was okay for her to store stuff in her house. So it easily could have been a call from her.
At any point were you in Sarah's backyard?
Yeah.
Did I tell you what were you doing back there?
I actually left and went out the back way.
Why?
Her front door's broken.
What's wrong with the front door?
The deadlock actually doesn't lock. And they just always have problems with the front door. And now they don't even have a key. So I just went right out the back door.
We went to the front door, there was no problem.
Oh, I don't know. I thought there was a problem.
How does Sarah usually get in?
Through the back door.
She uses the back door?
Unless she has a key. She hasn't had a key. Because it bent that one time.
So you went to work. Did you communicate with Sarah at any point after you left her house that day?
No, I didn't have my phone. I actually left work while I was at work to go to my house, tear everything apart looking for my phone.
What do you mean you didn't have your phone?
I didn't have my phone on me that night.
Where was your phone?
I have no idea. Still don't know. You guys have it now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what happened with my phone that day, but I just remember going to work, realizing I didn't have it. And, yeah.
How do you left her house without your phone?
I guess so. I could have lost it at like 2 o'clock. My mom told me that they found the phone in the Draper's driveway. I could have lost it when I was moving.
So you didn't realize you lost your phone until you got to work?
Yeah. I tried not to use my phone as much as possible.
Why?
I don't know. Just distraction. All different social medias. I just call, text. I don't really use it too often. And I was spending time with her, so I didn't even, if you're probably talking, I wasn't even worried about my phone. But I usually use my phone a lot at work, because there's times where it's slow, and I'll just stand in the back on my phone.
Sarah was a special kid. Every time she came into the branch, she would come over and give me a hug, a kiss. I've been in my branch for 34 years. A lot of my customers, my customers a long time. So I have developed a lot of relationships with people over the years.
And Sarah was one of those people you had a relationship with?
Absolutely. I had a customer at my desk when Sarah was leaving the bank, and she waited till she saw me. As I said, every time she came in, she'd come over, give me a hug, sometimes give me a kiss. And she waited till I saw her because I had a customer at my desk.
And how do you know that?
Because she stood in the door looking towards my desk.
And this is another view, pause.
Right, she's looking towards my desk.
All right, and the person in that video you recognize?
That's Sarah.
Play, please.
That's where she's waving to me goodbye.
And that was the last time you saw her?
Correct.
Did you say anything to her?
She had asked one of my tellers what time we were open until.
Sarah did ask me what time we closed, and I told her 6 o'clock, and she said I may be back.
What was her demeanor like? Was she laughing? Was she crying? Did she seem upset?
Nope, she was smiling.
Was that out of the ordinary for her?
No.
And then she said to me, "I'll see you later." And I blew her a kiss, waved goodbye.
And what did you say to her, if
I
anything?
said I love you, because we had that friendship.
On December 1st, did you have an exchange of text messages with your daughter?
Yes.
At some point on December 2nd, do you receive a phone call from somebody in New Jersey?
Yeah, I got a call from my mother, who said she hadn't been able to get in touch with Sarah for the whole day.
What time was that text sent to your daughter?
10:35 p.m.
And that's sent on December 2nd,
Yes.
2016.
Yes.
And what do you ask your daughter?
Sarah, where are you with a question?
Mr. Stern, the phone that we looked at with the pictures, where's that phone now?
Is it my phone or
Yeah, the phone that we looked at where you read the text messages from your daughter?
my phone?
Right, your phone. Do you still have that?
Yes.
Have you since upgraded your iPhone?
Yes.
Did you turn that phone in when you upgraded it? Why?
It's got all the texts and messages from Sarah.
Could you have saved them?
I don't know. I know people have tried to transfer things and they've lost all their pictures and information, texts and contacts, and I just didn't want to take the chance.
So, you come home December 3rd, or into December 3rd. Are there Sarah's friends at the house?
Yes.
But you don't always tell the truth, is that correct? I haven't in the past. You made an accusation against somebody, said that you were by that person. Right. Later on, when you were asked why you lied, you stated that you panicked. I didn't know what to say, so I made it up. Remember that? Not those words exactly. You don't remember saying that? Okay. You were still living with my client Liam at that residence, correct? Right. And you were aware that Liam had communication with an individual by the initials of AC, correct? Right. You discussed those conversations. We did. And so, when you tell the police in February 2017 that Liam told you all these details about what he allegedly did to Sarah, it was after, it was approximately 2 months from Sarah's disappearance, correct? Right. It was after conversations were had about Liam's conversations with AC, correct? Right.
When you spoke to police February 1st, 2017, were you aware that anyone else other than him and you knew about what happened to Sarah?
No.
You were asked questions about meeting with me and Ms. Doyle and the detectives prior to trial, correct?
Yes.
You said you had, correct?
Yes.
What did we tell you during those meetings that you needed to do when you came to court?
Tell the truth.
Again, just that last thing, with respect to your cooperation agreement and your plea, correct? What happens if you come in here and lie?
The agreement goes out the window and I am facing all 7 charges.
Including felony murder, correct? And the exposure of felony murder is 30 years to life, correct?
Right.
Sentencing in the matter of State of New Jersey versus Liam McKenzie. Mr. McKenzie is now 21 years old. He lived in Neptune City. Everyone essentially in almost all of the family members that testified came from this small community of Neptune City. They all knew each other. That's what makes this really a heinous event, that these were two people, meaning Sarah and Liam, that knew each other since, I believe, grammar school. So on count 1, murder in the first degree, it's life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Count 2 is robbery in the first degree. This sentence will run concurrently, meaning at the same time. It's 20 years New Jersey State Prison. And count 5, desecrating human remains as second degrees. That's 10 years consecutive to the other counts, to count 1 especially.
We just saw the completion of State versus Liam McIntasney there, and as Judge English indicated, he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for the murder of Sarah Stern, among several other counts that he was convicted of. Really, what this boils down to is that this just ends the last chapter in the book that is the notorious killer that Liam McIntasney is. He'll go down in history as one of Monmouth County's most heinous killers here. It's tragic that nothing can bring Sarah back from the crimes that Liam McIntasney and Preston Taylor had committed, but I hope that this gives her some kind of restful sleep, some kind of peace, to know that her killer, the person who brutally murdered her and snuffed her life out on this earth, is going to spend the rest of his life behind bars.
It's been a long 2.5 years for this journey. I think finally we got justice for Sarah. I love my daughter. And everybody else did too. She's a good kid. She was a talented artist. She was a rising star. Her life ended way too soon. I miss her. I cry for her every night. I'm just glad that finally justice is served.
Liam McIntasney was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Sarah Stern. Between November 1992 and September 1993, Brian Patrick Miller committed a horrific crime, taking the lives of Angela Brasso and Melanie Bernas in a manner that deeply shocked the Arizona community. He showed no remorse for his actions and continued to distort the facts to keep the truth concealed.
So about 10 years old, you come out here, you're living with grandma originally? Yeah. And then mom came out?
Yeah.
Is there a reason you came out to live with grandma, or?
I never got a reason why. I think it was mostly financial.
What were your folks doing?
My mom was, at the time that I remember, she was security at a grocery store.
In Hawaii?
Yeah.
What island were you
Oahu.
on? Do you guys live in the main, like Waikiki, or?
In Kaneohe.
I can't spell that.
Kaneohe is the area where they filmed a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean.
So, 10 years old, you're, what, fourth grade-ish?
Just going in the 5th.
Yeah, was your dad around?
No, he passed away in 1977.
Sorry to hear that.
He's the reason why we were in Hawaii, because he was Army.
What did he do in the Army?
So he started at Fort Knox, and then, see, I don't know a lot about my dad.
You don't know what he did?
I know he was Special Forces, but that's all I know.
So he passed away in 87, is that what you said?
77.
70. Yeah. So you were 5-ish?
Yeah.
You were born in 72, right?
Yes.
So, Mom, you guys stay there for at least a few years, 5 years. Mom sends you out here for a year, and then you live with Grandma. What was Grandma's name?
Leela James.
That was Grandpa around, or?
He passed away
before you came out here, or?
No, it was after 80s, late 80s, early 90s.
What was his name?
David James.
David James. So while you were out here with Grandma and Grandpa, did you get along with them very well, or?
I got along with him great.
What about Grandma?
For the most part, you know, she was probably at the time my best friend. Her and my aunt. See, when I moved there, it was my grandmother and my grandfather, even though they were divorced. He was in no shape to live on his own, so they had him still living under the same roof. And it was my aunt and her husband at the time. My aunt's name was, at the time, Barb Hamill. It's now Barb James. And her husband was Gordon Hamill.
And how'd you get along with them?
Got along with them great. My uncle was really, I got picked on a lot, so he tried teaching me Tang Sudo. It's like martial arts, but
one of the many forms of jiu-jitsu,
yeah,
like karate.
We did that for a little while, and then he just kind of dropped it.
Did you like it at all, or?
I mean, what kid doesn't like
Do you remember
learning
any?
stuff like
you
that?
remember any cool moves that you learned?
No.
No.
He was trying to teach me to defend myself, but it was like, I'd rather just walk away.
Now, what made the kids pick on you in school?
Well, in Hawaii, they picked on me because I was white.
Howley?
Yeah, Howley. And here, it was because I was different. I wasn't like the other kids because I raised in a different environment. I kept to myself. Didn't like sports. But
So what were you into as a smaller kid?
I liked bicycles for a while. Well, I still do. I collect them more than anything. But
What kind of bikes?
I used to have like old Schwinn's. I had the West Coast Chopper's bike for a little while, and the Orange County Chopper Huffy, or not Huffy, but Schwinn. Anything that's different stands out. I had the big balloon tire bike for a while.
You thought it was like the quasi beach combers or something similar to that.
So it's just the ones that stand out.
So in that early '90s area, you were in the Phoenix area.
Mm-hmm.
You lived in there, and do you remember hearing any news articles about any ladies being killed?
Probably saw a few.
Do you remember any specific ones? And you told me that around the Metro Center area on the bike paths, on the canals, you weren't ever around there. Maybe once in a while.
Yeah, once in a while, not like a regular thing.
You remember the name Angela Brasso at all?
No.
Well, she was around the bike paths in 1992. And then in 1993, there's a girl by the name of Melanie Bernes, who was also around the bike, the canals and the bike paths over there. And there's some DNA evidence that kind of links you to those girls. Is there any way you can explain that to me?
No, because I don't know those names.
Well, any girl in particular, whether you remember their name or not, how would your DNA evidence be linked to them?
I have no clue.
You have no clue about
No.
two girls that were killed and your DNA being linked to their bodies. And those letters that you wrote when you were younger that your mom gave us, you kind of recognize those as being your handwriting. Very similar characteristics in those letters to what happened to these young ladies. And now years later, we have DNA that links you to those two ladies.
See how that's possible.
Well, how else would you know what DNA is?
Yeah, I know what DNA is.
Okay, what is DNA to you? Where does it come from?
DNA could be in semen, blood, saliva, RID. Tells our body, what hair color we have, what eye color we have.
And do you know the numbers on DNA, like what your specific DNA is to how many gazillions of people, and it can only be you?
I don't know.
It's in the trillions. So what I'm telling you is your DNA is linked to both these women who were killed. So I'm just curious if you only had with the prostitute and only had with your wife, were never around the area around Metro Center where these ladies were found. One was up by her apartments on Cactus, and one was by the canal. How can you explain to me that your DNA is there?
I can't remember everything I did back then, but I know I didn't kill anyone.
Well, I would think that you would remember if you did something like that.
Yeah, I would.
So you sure you don't want to, now's your chance, kind of come and tell me, is there a reason something like that happened? I mean, it would help you get it off your chest if you did something like that.
I didn't kill anyone.
You didn't kill anybody?
No.
But yet you can't explain to me how your DNA is there.
It was embarrassing mentioning the prostitute because, I valued, at the time, I valued, you don't have it until you're married. But, I did, for about a year, frequent Van Buren and Camelback Road.
How did you get there?
Car.
You sure you didn't have with these women and maybe something went awry after that happened?
No.
In the above entitled action, upon my oath, finds the defendant as to count 4 kidnapping victim Melanie Burness guilty. Verdict count 5 attempted sexual assault. The court, the finder of fact, in the above entitled action, upon my oath, finds the defendant as to count 5 attempted sexual assault victim Angela Brasso guilty. Count 6 attempted assault. The court, the finder of fact, in the above entitled action, upon my oath, finds the defendant as to count 6 attempted sexual assault victim Melanie Burness guilty. All right, counsel, I'm up for positions on the next step and when we start the next step.
Well, I assume, because we've not discussed any instructions for the aggravation phase, we need to do that.
We do.
I'm prepared to argue it whenever.
I think we need to talk about some law that I discovered regarding count 6 and aggravation phase. Do you want to talk about that now?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Parker, you good with that?
Happy to, Judge.
Okay.
And we're prepared to address all that information as well.
All right. So, as the state amended the notice of aggravating factors for the death penalty, the law changed between Ms. Brasso's murder and Ms. Burness's murder, as you know. In the state's amended notice, the F2 regarding Angela Brasso, and this is what you filed on June 8th of 2020. You said F2, the defendant has been or was previously convicted of a felony in the United States involving the use or threat of violence on another person, and then the state added whether preparatory or completed. The statute did not include that language, whether preparatory or completed, in 1991, 1992. There's case law that talks specifically about attempted first-degree murder, and if it can be completed without the use or threat of violence, you can't use it as an F2.
I understand.
Okay. So the court's concern, because we're cross-applying, but the court's concern is I don't think you can use count 6 as an F2 factor for count 1, if that made sense. Now, the wrinkle is you allege dangerous. And I couldn't find any case law that specifically talked about that.
I think that allegation may have been outside of the statutory language at that time as well, if we're talking about the same use of dangerousness. But I think the argument that the court is raising, or the position with respect to the law, applies also to count 4, and whether that may be used against count 1 as an F2 aggravating circumstance.
Whether kidnap can occur without the use or threat of violence?
Just by the statutory definition, correct.
Well, and then you have the kicker that you can't double count. Like I can use count 2 to find the F2, but the trier of fact can't then use it as a double aggravator. That makes sense.
Well, the attempted the attempted sexual assaults are, you have found them to be guilty. They're dangerous.
Well, not yet they're not, because we didn't include that in the,
Correct. We still have to do that.
right. and-
We're not there yet.
Right.
And I would agree that absent that you could commit attempted sexual assault without it necessarily being a crime of violence, which is what was required.
Right.
But I would want to think it was, I can't remember the name of the defendant right now, McCrae. State versus McCrae was a situation where there was assault committed that was alleged to be an F2 at a time when it had to be a crime involving violence, but it was found to be dangerous. And the Arizona Supreme Court found that that qualified. So I don't know if that's where you're going.
Day one.
So, sorry, pause. Check your emails. I just emailed you draft 1. Okay, so we can look at that as well. But let me get my Arajis open. Sorry, Mr. Parker, go ahead.
Capital case instruction 1.6A2, which is referenced in the Rajis with respect to offenses occurring before July 17th of 1993, addresses the situation with respect to F2s that may have been considered prior to that date. And there's some information in the comment that I think would help guide this discussion. The information does not reference using dangerousness as an allegation to allow the state to argue that based on a separate allegation, they could therefore satisfy the requirement of violence as it's defined at that time to meet the circumstances of the F2. What this really says is you have to look at the circumstances of the actual definition.
Right, and that's what the case law says, yeah.
Right.
As I said, the court needs to read State versus McCrae.
MC.
MCCRAY. I think there's 2 C's. Yeah, 2 C's.
The 2008? Maybe, sound right?
That's about right. It was the original murder happened, I think, in 1979, maybe. So I can't remember the exact year that it happened. But the trial didn't occur until, that sounds about right.
All right, the site for basically Ms. D's, 218 Arizona 252.
Yeah, the crime actually, I guess, occurred in 87, but we didn't go to trial wasn't solved for a number of years.
So McCrae's prior conviction was for assault with a dangerous enhancement. And McCrae says for the purposes of applying the F2 factor, court should consider the fact that a prior conviction included an enhancement for dangerousness. The dangerous nature of the offense must be charged and either be admitted by the defendant or found by the trier of fact. The allegation of dangerous, in effect, adds to the underlying offense as an element that subjects the defendant to increased penalties. Okay. I think that answers the question.
It should.
It does for the court. But I know you're just getting this as well. So do you all want to take a break and look at what I emailed you and I can come back instead of everybody sitting here staring at me?
That sounds good, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that, Judge. Thank you.
2:30 enough?
Should be.
Certainly. We have quite a bit to discuss. I think that gives us enough time to at least review this case and prepare some additional information for the court if needed.
Brian Patrick Miller, known as the Canal Killer, was sentenced to death in June 2023 for the murders of Angela Brasso and Melanie Burness. The court found him guilty of both murders, which occurred in the early 1990s in Arizona. Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.